It returned as quickly as it was taken away. I wasn't prepared for it, and now rather than being blinded by darkness, I was blinded by bright light. I stumbled backwards and fell to my knees, my hands gripping the brick wall behind me. I closed my tearing eyes and blinked slowly, trying to get readjusted to the light. 2 years ago, the darkness came. I had been cutting tomatoes for my wife, Jane, who was sautéing vegetables when the world went black. I cried out, blinking furiously, my hands clawing at my face. I heard a similar cry behind me. Ben, I can't see. Something's wrong, I can't see. Jane, I can't either. We need to call for help. Something happened. I groped around for the phone. I didn't even know where it was, but I needed to keep my hands busy. It had to be on the counter somewhere. And that's when I heard Jane scream. She must have burned herself on the frying pan or knocked it over, but her shrieks still haunt me to this day. When I did find a phone, I couldn't get an ambulance. We couldn't even contact the police. A busy line greeted us. This didn't just happen to us. It happened to everyone. And with the world's sight being gone, for some reason sounds we had grown accustomed to went away as well. The busy New York City streets were now quiet. The happy chatter that filled the park across from us was silent. We now lived in a blind and muted world. We treated Jane's burns with ice and carried through the motions of our old life. Before the TV stations went dark, they would bring on people who had suddenly gone blind before the darkness. They said that it was something they got used to and eventually learned how to continue living. But either they were lying or had a support system we couldn't get because life for us was terrible. We ran out of food within a month and began making trips to a nearby bodega to pick up whatever we could. When we arrived, people were fighting over the last few frozen meals. We got what we could, but I left with a bruised face and Jane's arm was cut by a knife. We began venturing further from home to find the things we needed to survive. But a year ago, we got lost and we haven't been able to find our way back home. We sleep when we find a soft place, we eat when we find food, and we barely survive. But now, I blinked and there was an outline. I blinked again and there was now faded color. I blinked a third time and saw my wife, hunched over, picking out her ragged hair and staring at nothing. Jane, I said, my eyes still tearing from the sting of the sun, but unwilling to blink again at fear that it would all go away. Stared at her. Her skin was gray and scarred with burns and cuts, her clothes filthy, her bones prominent, and nails long and broken. Jane, I said, more loudly this time. She rose her head slowly, her blue eyes looking to the left of me. My voice cracked. I rarely spoke above a whisper in the past few months. There was no need to. I think I can. I trailed off, barely believing it, convinced it was an illusion or a cruel trick. I think I can. And then something caught my eye. The building behind my haggard wife. Thick black letters formed a sentence. It took me a little time before I understood what it meant, as reading had been a lost luxury for us. Don't tell them you can see. That's when I began to look around. It wasn't just on that one wall, it was everywhere, big and small. Like a crazed graffiti artist had made the city his own, but only had one thing to say. Who's them? I looked at the people around me. We were in an alleyway accompanied by 3 other people. A man who looked like he was about to begin urinating and sang softly to himself, a woman napping on a piece of cardboard, and a second man talking softly to the wall. My story wasn't unique. I had heard many similar ones over the past 2 years. People who couldn't find their families, others like us who couldn't find their way home. Some who had gone days without food. There were fights, rapes, theft, murder, and so many horrible things we never thought would happen in our city. The world had become lawless, and we were trying to not become its victims. Yes, Jane whispered, her head bobbed up to face mine, guided by my voice. I think I can. I looked back at the thick black warnings surrounding me and back at my wife. Whoever had written them must have been as crazed as the man who had now begun peeing to the right of me as he sang the alphabet backwards. I think I can see. I thought the world had gone quiet when the darkness began, but in the moment I knew what true silence was. The peeing man stopped urinating and singing, the napping woman stopped snoring, and the muttering man silenced. Jane's face was directly facing mine now. Only her unfocused blue eyes told me that she was still blind. You can see? She asked, her hoarse voice cracking. She reached out her hand and found my face. Yes, I whispered, my tears from the sun now turning into tears of happiness. I can see, I can see, I can now help us, I can see. She came closer and put her other hand on my face. I didn't realize how much I had missed when Jane cradled my face in her hands, the heat of her palms warming my cheek. She wiped away a tear with her thumb. I need your eyes, she said. I will be your eyes, I will always be your eyes, I said. I sniffed back the snot that was beginning to flow from my nose. Her hands moved from my cheeks next to my eyes. She traced a finger over my eyelid, a broken nail lightly scratching the soft skin. I need your eyes, she said again, this time more loudly. She began to press her fingers lightly around my eye sockets. That's when movement around me caught my eye. The 3 other people in the alley with us had risen to their feet and had formed a circle around me and my wife. Panic rose in my chest. "Jane, we need to get out of here," I whispered, placing my hand on her arm. I went to push her hand off my face, but she tightened her grip. "Ouch!" I gasped, her fingers pressed further into my eyes. "Stop!" I pushed her off of me. "What do you think you're doing?" Animal-like, Jane leapt back at me, pushing me over from my knees onto my back. "I need your eyes," she screamed. I pushed her off me again, but another hand shot out and grabbed my shoulder. It was the man who seconds ago was peeing next to me. "She needs your eyes," he said as he stared over me. "She needs your eyes," the others began to whisper. "We need your eyes, I need your eyes, need to get your eyes."